I was going through the remnants of my comic book collection the other day. Yeah, I'm a geek. And I stumbled upon a 1973 series published by DC Comics entitled Prez. Now, the titular character is Prez Rickard. Prez is spelled P-R-E-Z, which is also short form for president, all of which makes for an uncanny coincidence given that Prez the man ends up becoming Prez, the President of the United States. What are the odds? Kind of like Dr. Otto Octavius becoming Dr. Octopus due to one of those de rigueur lab accidents that frequently occur in the comic book universe. In any event, 42 years after publication, Prez makes for fascinating reading, given that this comic book series seems eerily prescient from a current Canadian point of view. You see, the newly minted President Rickard is young. He's only 19, actually, but he's a photogenic chap, and he's got a handsome head of hair. He's also painfully politically correct back in the days when the term politically correct had yet to be coined. On the downside, Prez has zero experience. What recently elected real-life leader comes immediately to mind, folks? And there are more coincidences as well. For starters, when it comes to powers and abilities, well, Prez is no Superman. Heck, he's not even Aqualad. Rather, he only has two attributes. One, leadership, and two, hand-to-hand combat. There is a comparison to be made with Justin here as well. Even with a resume filled with white space, Justin did indeed become Liberal leader and eventually Prime Minister. That's still hard for me to say. And when it comes to hand-to-hand combat, well, we all witnessed, with a measure of shock and horror, what Justin did to that tomato can Patrick Brazeau in the boxing ring 3 years ago. And there are other commonalities regarding Prez and Justin Trudeau. Consider Justin's first act in becoming Prime Minister. Namely, he introduced a gender-equitable cabinet. Likewise, Prez strives for gender equity in his inner circle too. Thus, the Vice President and the Secretary of State are women. Although Prez does kind of lose points here in terms of nepotism, given that the two women he appoints happen to be his mother and his sister. But Prez does Justin one better in terms of striving for racial equity on Capitol Hill. So it is that Prez appoints his native buddy, Eagle Free, as director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. What does Eagle Free bring to the table? Well, he has a deep understanding of animals. Golly, who knew the FBI was so bogged down with animal crime cases way back in 1973? By the way, the writer and artist of Prez really screwed up on the political correctness file in their depiction of Eagle Free, who is clad in so much traditional Native American attire, it would make a diehard Washington Redskins fan blush. He also lives in a teepee near the White House. Can't see that happening with Canada's Minister of Indigenous and Northern Affairs, although how cool would it be if Dr. Carolyn Bennett lived in an igloo right next door to 24 Sussex Drive? Now, moving on, as my rebel colleague Brian Lilly recently flagged, Justin has his sights set on more gun control. Translation: legal gun owners can expect more bureaucratic harassment, while nothing tangible, of course, will be done to target criminals who are brandishing illegal firearms. Well, what do you know, folks? By issue number 3, Prez 2 is introducing new strict gun control measures. This, of course, leads to an assassination attempt by a right-wing militia led by the descendant of George Washington. And you thought Wonder Woman's invisible jet was a bit of a stretch, eh, folks? But what's really interesting is this: even though Prez was a product of the touchy-feely early 70s, Prez was nevertheless tough on terrorism. In issue number 4, Transylvania declares war on the United States. Dracula's master plan is to fly a massive transport plane over the U.S. and release its deadly cargo, namely thousands of rabid vampire bats. Millions of Americans will surely die, but apparently appointing Eagle Free as FBI chief was an inspired move after all, for the resourceful native convinces hundreds of birds to fly into the engines of Dracula's aircraft, causing the plane to crash into the ocean before it can reach mainland U.S. Alas, this is where Justin diverges from Prez, unfortunately. He is still apparently committed to pulling Canadian fighter jets out of the Middle East, and he's still keen on resettling 25,000 Syrian refugees on Canadian soil, despite what happened in Paris earlier this month. That's both illogical and a potential disservice to our country. Bottom line, as comic books go, Prez was no Batman. The comic book was canceled after just 4 issues due to poor sales. Hey, let's hope that in this regard, Prez is also prescient, and that the reign of Justin Trudeau will also be limited to 4, as in 4 years. I'm already counting the days. For TheRebel.Media, I'm David the Menzoid Menzies.